Hello again. Happy Tuesday, January the 20th. Thank you for joining me. Sorry I'm a minute late. Clinic has been a little hectic. A lot of you know that I was at a metabolic health conference. There, I'll get it out last weekend. And I'm still kind of chasing my tail, trying to get caught up in clinic and sleep and all that kind of stuff from being away from home and whatnot. But I'm glad that you are here today. We're discussing Fork in the Road by Dr. Jen Unwin. We're on to chapter 3, the problem and the remedy. And I hope you guys are enjoying this and getting something from this. If you know someone that needs this information, please share it with them. Even if they don't read the book, pass it along. Because the more that we can spread the message of hope, the more we can spread the message of food addiction and that it is treatable and we can do things about it, hopefully the more progress we can make. So let's dive into the problem and the remedy. And always you can post some comments. I'll do my best to look over and see them. I'm not very good at multitasking, but I'll do the best I can. And, kind of gives me a little bit to get some feedback on if you're enjoying this or if there's something that we need to talk about at a later date on a different show. If there's something that comes up, please put it in the comments there. So the problem and the remedy. So carbohydrate addiction is similar to having a problem with nicotine or alcohol, but there's one big difference, and this is a really big difference. We have to eat. People can give up cigarettes. They can give up alcohol. They don't ever have to touch them again. You do not need them to survive. But what do you do when it's food? When you give up the drugs and the alcohol and things like that, people admire you. They're like, wow, congratulations on your overcoming your struggle and fighting your demons and things like that. But what do we do when it's food? We have to eat. We have to eat to survive. That's how the body is designed. And what we know is that food is everywhere. It's everywhere we turn. You can avoid situations where there's drugs and alcohol there. You don't have to go to parties. You don't have to go to places where it is sold. You can't avoid the food. And food has become such a central part of our holidays, of our traditions, of our birthdays, of any enjoyment we have. It seems like food is the centered part of that. So Dave at the bottom of page 45 states that as a dietitian, I've seen food addicts come into my office totally lost on what to do. They've heard advice on go low fat, go low this, go do that, count your calories, do this and whatnot. And they just don't know what to do. They have no idea how to combat this food addiction. His advice is to focus on real foods. Your cravings will have no chance, and he stands behind that advice. And that is our advice too here at DMA Weight and Wellness. First and foremost, focus on whole foods. Even if you're not ready to give up some of the higher starch foods, if you are able to focus on whole foods the way that they were put on the planet and taken off that planet, then you're making a big difference. So now moving on to page 46. Food is cultural. It's family. It's love. It's entertainment. Food is essential. It is there. And often we get hooked as kids. We breed into our kids junk food as a reward. If my daughter does good on a test, what does she do? She gets a Snicker bar. If it's someone's birthday, they get cupcakes. If they were all good in class and they get a reward for being good, it's an ice cream party. We are putting in our kids that mechanism of conditioning. So we're conditioning to them associate food, specifically junk food and sugary foods and foods that are bad with you, for reward. And when we learn that as a young age, it's hard to overcome that. So in the world of addiction, there's also some commonality. How often do people who give up alcohol and cigarettes start craving sweets and snacks? And I see this a lot with my clients who are recovering or in recovery. When they come to see me, they have given up a hard drug or hard alcohol or something of that nature, and then they get transferred over to food. And even our addiction facilities encourage this. They encourage this. So you've got a craving, here's a piece of candy. Or you're feeling that urge to use, let's go eat, let's go have some ice cream or something like that. They encourage that. And then often we just transfer the addiction. We boot it down the road because it's not being realized as an addiction. I love this story at the bottom of that same paragraph. And it was a patient that came in to see Jen and her husband. And it was a young man who was addicted to sugar, nicotine, marijuana, alcohol, and gaming. A lot of people don't think of gaming as an addiction, but it definitely is. He noticed what worked with his sugar and carb addiction first, and then he repeated the process to eliminate first cigarettes, then alcohol, then marijuana, then gaming, and he's lost over 110 pounds. Now he's running. Success can bring more success. But what I loved about this is he took what he learned about how to deal and break up with his sugar and carb addiction, and then he applied it to his other addictions. And you can do the same thing if you are a previous addict of another substance. You can use what you learned in those programs and apply it to your sugar and carb addiction. So build on your successes. Start somewhere, make some change, and build on it. So we're bombarded with conflicting nutritional advice. We mentioned that just a few minutes ago. Fat is good, fat is bad. Meat is good, meat is bad. Carbs are good, carbs are bad. Dairy's good, dairy's bad. Eat frequently, eat less frequently. Salt is good, salt is bad. It seems like there's a ton of mixed messages. And how is anybody supposed to sort that out and know what's right and what's not right? They pointed out the shakes diet. You have 2 shakes in a small, regular, good meal. They're superficially appealing. They take the doubt out of eating for a while because people know exactly what they're supposed to eat. They don't have to question it. But the problem is you can't live there. You can't live on fake ingredients, and they're also fully processed. And what happens is it's almost like a slippery slope. So I'm not saying that protein shakes are bad. Hear me out there. I'm really not saying that protein shakes are bad, but I'm saying if you are taking your nutrition, if your solution is to take and just substitute with the fake or frankenfood, as I sometimes call them, it's a slippery slope because you're not going to stay on that frankenfood for forever. And what do you do when you're not eating that? Well, you've already had that sweet taste. You've already had that urge for that processed food, and you're just going to step back into other processed food. Down at the bottom of 46, our approach is to eliminate all the foods that prevent you from being able to listen to your own natural hunger and fullness signals. And they talked about animals in the wild. When animals are in the wild, they don't go on diets. They don't wonder what they're supposed to eat because they eat when they're hungry and they stop when they're full, and they're eating their diet that is natural to them. Natural whole foods, high in protein and fat, send signals to the brain to stop eating. So we're the same way. When we're eating natural whole foods that are rich in nutrition, it sends signals to the brain that stop, you're done, you need to stop eating. When we're not eating those natural whole foods that are rich in those nutrients, those signals don't get sent. Side note, not in the book here, then I don't know if you guys have seen it, the stories out there and squirrels in like New York parks and raccoons and things like that go dumpster diving, they get very obese and they get aggressive and they get mean, and they will come after people's food, trying to take foods when they're coming into restaurants and things like that, because then they're not eating their natural diet anymore. They've gone to a processed food, frankenfood type diet for them, and it just sends them off in an addiction kind of way. I watched a video one time, I think, of a chipmunk doing that, and it was crazy how they were going after stealing people's food. So, all right, carby and processed foods override that fullness signal. And then that leads to physical and mental harm in the long run. Sugar and other processed foods cause damage and inflammation in the body, leading to chronic health problems like type 2 diabetes, fatigue, mental health problems, digestive things, whatnot. So when you eat that carby food, you don't get the signal to your brain that it's time to stop eating. Imagine sitting down with a plate of steak. You can only eat so much until you can't put that next bite in your mouth. Imagine sitting down with a bag of potato chips. You could eat and eat and eat and eat and not stop. And that's because your brain doesn't get that fullness sensation. So let's skip down under Bitten's comments. Some important physiology. And this is things that we teach in the clinic, so it might be a good refresher for some people. Part of the problem with dietary carbohydrates concern its relationship to the hormone insulin produced by the pancreas gland. So remember, insulin's a good hormone. We need it or we die because it controls our blood sugar. But insulin has another role, and that's to grant or block access to our body fat. So if you skip down a couple of sentences, we are cleverly designed so that our insulin pushes sugar from the blood where it's dangerous, because if your blood sugar goes too high, it's dangerous, to the inside of our cells to provide energy for the cells. But what if you consume more sugar than is needed by your muscles? Well, hang on, I skipped a sentence. For muscles, cells need this for energy is obvious, but what if you consume more sugar than is needed for your muscles? Well, that case, your body still has the imperative to get the sugar out of the bloodstream and get it out fast so it's not dangerous. Now insulin pushes the blood sugar into other cells, that of the liver, that of the abdomen, becomes that visceral fat that we don't like. Because the sugar is not needed, it is stored for future use as fat, causing big tummies and fatty liver. So think of it this way. Your insulin's your gatekeeper. When insulin is spiked, that gate is shut and you can't access your body fat because your body is storing. But when insulin is down and is low, the gate is open. Then you can access and burn your body fat. So physiology, talking about insulin, flip over page 48. The great news is that human beings have zero requirements for carbohydrate. And most people don't realize that. They think that carbohydrates are essential for life. However, we do need a small amount of glucose, but it's only about a teaspoon, and your liver has all the ability in the world to create that. Otherwise, we would die as soon as famine hits, or we would die during a fast. So if you've been able to fast for more than about 12 hours or whatnot, similar or even longer, your body's making plenty of glucose to stay alive. We don't need it. The body can do that for us. It is false that we need carbohydrates or sugar for energy. That is marketing, not science. The essential nutrition for life and health are protein and fat. So protein has essential fatty acids in it. Fat has essential fatty acids in it. There are no essential carbo acid anything. There's nothing essential about them, and your body can make the glucose that it needs to stay alive. So we want to become a fat burner. We want to become a fat burner because when you become a fat burner, you're less hungry. The hunger signal is down regulated. We're a dual fuel engine. Do you ever think of yourself like a dual fuel engine? We can burn either sugar or glucose, for another word, or we can burn fat for energy. Otherwise known as ketones. Ketone is the energy that is used there. So insulin's job is to drive the blood sugar down, and it blocks the fat burning. If you want to burn, it wants to burn the sugar first. However, once the sugar in your diet has been dealt with, say overnight, like when you're fasting, your insulin drops and allows you to burn your body fat. So like I said, when insulin's down, the gate is open. You can reach in then and burn your body fat for fuel, producing ketones to show you that you are burning body fat for fuel and not sugar for fuel, because you don't produce ketones when you are burning sugar for fuel. It takes some time to get into this process, though. It doesn't just happen in one 12-hour fast, because your body will kind of be back and forth trying to get into ketosis and adjusting. It takes about 2 full weeks for your body to adjust. It says to become a maximum fat burner takes about 2 weeks. Firstly, you're better able to access and burn your own fat storage, which could help with weight loss. Skip down a little bit more. Also, this is how you can avoid any need for dietary carbohydrates. So when you're burning your fat actively for fuel, you don't have that urge drive to eat. You don't have the need for the carbs to keep your blood sugar up, because your blood sugar stays stable. Enough is produced by your liver, and you're burning the fat for energy and fuel. Finally, hunger is in part a warning that you're getting too low on fuel. Most of us carry weeks of energy reserve as fat. So once you're a fat burner, hunger is less of a problem. Now, does it completely go away? No, it doesn't completely go away, but it gets a lot better and you're feeling less hungry and feel sooner. So next page, page 49, did you guys look at that list of ingredients for a typical donut? I counted them up last night, and there are 27 ingredients in just the donut part, and there are 13 ingredients in the glaze part. So that is 40 different ingredients in one donut there. That's a lot. How many ingredients are in eggs? Just one. How many is in beef? Just one. Chicken? Just one. Asparagus? Just one. That's why they don't need food labels, because it's just one. It is what it is. This, you need a food label. That is what you call frankenfood, food that is made up, not natural in any way. I put a big star on the sentence that's underneath that frankenfood list of ingredients. Recovery comes when we abstain from foods that trigger our cravings and overeating. You'll have to experiment with this. Not everybody has the same triggers as I do. You have different triggers. I have different triggers. But the basic principle of abstinence from sugar and flour to get you started and free of white stuff, that's the big one. So if you just start with I'm avoiding anything that has wheat flour in it, and if I'm avoiding anything that has sugar in it, it's a great place to start on getting free from sugar and carbohydrate addiction. Think of someone trying to give up alcohol or cigarettes. Should they try just a small whiskey or a half a cigarette first? Unfortunately, in order to succeed, many of us have to face up, and abstinence from the things that we crave is the only thing that works. And I think later, and it may be even on the next page, we discuss the two different strategies, but maybe later. So yes, abstinence, we have to admit that we have to give things up. If they are trigger foods for us, we just can't eat them. Kind of like you can't smoke half a cigarette if your goal is to not smoke, and you can't drink just a little bit of alcohol if your goal is to not drink. So page 50. Think of these as not foods. So sugar is not food, sweeteners are not food, flour is not food, breakfast cereal is not food, junk foods, alcohols. Those things are not foods. They are not nutrients. They do not nourish the body. Foods to abstain from or be very cautious with. Now, these may surprise you. Things like dairy, nuts, seeds, and higher sugar fruits like bananas and caffeine. Now, those are ones that a lot of people can handle just fine. They don't trigger them. They're not an issue. And if that's you, great. But other people, they have these foods, and then it's just going to keep them, their trigger going, their cravings for other foods. So that's where you got to know yourself. If your morning coffee keeps you wanting that donut or keeps you wanting something else or that next cup of coffee, and before you know it, you're having 15 cups of coffee, then coffee is a trigger for you. You can't have it. I see out of that list, actually all of them, I've seen the fruits do it. I've seen nuts and seeds. I find that nuts, seeds, and dairy tend to be bigger in women, and fruit tends to be a bigger trigger in men, just from my personal experience. So what's left after you remove all those things from the not foods and the cautious list? We're left with real whole foods, which is our meats, our fish, our eggs, fats, low sugar fruits, and green vegetables. And that sounds very restricting, but it's actually very freeing. When you live within the guidelines that you know, I can eat these and I can be fully and satisfied and don't have to worry about, am I going to overeat? That's actually very, very freeing. Page 51, we're going to skip George's comment, go down to the paragraph. Starchy carbohydrate foods like rice, potatoes, or bread are actually higher sugar foods when they are dealt with in the body by digestion. So remember that carbohydrates are a bunch of sugar molecules kind of all holding hands with each other. And when you swallow it and digest it, you stop holding hands and you break into individual sugar molecules. So just because it doesn't taste sweet doesn't mean it won't set off a sweet craving. Many people are triggered more from the savory, salty, starchy things that turn to sugar than they are the straight up sugar things. So did you guys notice the bottom sentence of that same paragraph, that Alzheimer's, several cancers, and other serious conditions have also been linked to poor metabolic health and obesity? Did you realize that Alzheimer's had a connection between obesity, and that I believe with cancer, there's somewhere between 9 and 12 different cancers that are directly related to poor metabolic health and obesity? Did you realize that sugar feeds cancer? That, when we're doing that thing called a PET scan to stage somebody to see how far the cancer is spread, what we're actually doing is injecting sugar into their vein. And then when the sugar solution gets to that cancer, it lights up like a Christmas tree because it's feeding, it's getting nutrients, and it's growing. I mean, did you guys know that? And when I realized that for the first time, I was already a provider. When it sunk into me that sugar feeds cancer, and I'm not telling my patients to not eat sugar, especially the ones that already have cancer, but those that are already at risk for cancer, it's like, we're doing something wrong. And how do you not know that sugar causes cancer when the test to find out how far the cancer spread is based on sugar? It was mind-blowing, and also made me feel really bad when I found out about it, but changed my career and now working to try to help people make their lives better and get rid of sugar. So next sentence. I know some of you will already be thinking that it is impossible to live only in the green food list. I hear this every day. I can't do it. It's too strict. I can't, I won't, I don't want to do it. But now that I know the freedom that comes with this lifestyle far outweighs the momentary pleasure of the cupcake or the chocolate bar. So you want that. It gives you that momentary pleasure. You feel so good from eating that sweet, that sugar, whatever it is, or that starch. But then we crash. Not to mention, then it enslaves us to our bodies that are unhealthy. And so you're way more free when you give that up and realize, I could have that, but I'm not going to have that because this feels better. The health feels better. Other things feel better. Many keto and low carb plans allow high levels of dairy or have whole books on recreating breads, cakes, and junk food. All right, this one might hurt a little. I'm sorry if it does, but the whole net carb idea, and should we be eating low net carb breads and pastries and recreating cookies and cakes and things? And the answer is maybe, maybe not. They can trigger you to overeat and to go back onto the sugar wagon just as much. They are not real foods. They are fake foods. If you can tolerate them, have them as a treat. Let's not have them every single day because that's a slippery slope. And I've seen it stall out many, many, many people. The truth of it is that our ancestors, they were not eating cupcakes and things like that. They were eating real whole foods, and that's how they stayed healthy and didn't have chronic diseases like cancer and diabetes. So what we're aiming for, if you identified as a carb addict in the earlier chapters, what you're aiming for is very clean keto or low carb plan. And that's if you're an addict. Now, if you're one of those non-harmful users that you can take and leave it every once in a while, okay, you can do that more than people who are addicts. But if you're an addict, you're looking for a very clean kind of meat and vegetables, low carb, fruits only. There are two ways to transition. I knew we were going to get here. There's the cold turkey, or I call it the rip your Band-Aid off, or the stepwise approach. And you get to decide which way is best for you. The advantage of cold turkey, I'm on page 52, couple of lines down. The advantage of cold turkey is that it takes the complexity out of the transition. And after a few days, you will get to feel the glorious benefits of being free of drug foods. So the beginning hurts a whole lot more, but you get to the more rewarding part faster, basically. And you're not tempted to slip back in as easily. The downside for anyone transitioning, so that if they're trying to just slowly cut back, is that they are vulnerable to slipping back. That was at the bottom of that paragraph, and I think I already covered it. So let's talk about preparing for your new way of eating. So whether you're ripping the Band-Aid off or whether you're stepping into it, they list 10 different things. I think each of these can be very helpful, and each are ones that we talk about it in different ways here in the clinic. So one, set a start date. Now, I say if you know you're ready, it needs to start at that moment, but sometimes it's better to say, I'm beginning February 1, very clean, know where you're headed. So choosing that time, and maybe don't pick Christmas Day. You could if you're really brave, but don't pick your birthday. Let's pick a day that's a pretty safe day to get going. Before you get to that day, this is number 2, go through your cupboards, fridge, and freezer and take advantage or in advance and get rid of all your drug foods. So if you look at it and it's got multiple ingredients, it's a Franken food, it probably needs to go on away and get out before your start date, so that when your start date is there, it's not going to tempt you. Number 3, restock your fridge, freezer, and cupboards with recovery foods from the green list. So get a bunch of veggies for you to munch on that are whole ones. Get a bunch of different meat varieties. Have eggs. Have all that prepped up and ready to go. I want to add one too here though, because if you're living in a home and you're not the only person there, but you're the only one that's making these changes, I still think you need to go through and clean out your pantries, your refrigerators, and get rid of those fake foods, those junk foods. You need to put them aside, but I understand people in your family may not be 100 on board and may want to have some of those. So I use the example all the time is I hate gummies. I could never eat gummies. They're going to rot in my house, but my kids enjoy gummies. So gummies can be there. They're safe. I don't like mint chocolate chip ice cream. I'm never going to be tempted by mint chocolate chip ice cream. So that ice cream is safe in my house, but the Rocky Road ice cream is not in my house. So try to find things, some compromises, some things that you don't like and you're not going to consume, but others in your house can happen. So number 4, top of page 53. Have your own cupboard, fridge, shelf, and freezer section. And I do this at my house still to this day. My husband and I have a cabinet that is more our foods, the things that we're preparing. And then I have things that are for my kids. My kids are a little healthier and can have other things. So, the stuff that they're packing in their school lunches or for after school snacks and things. So they have their own stuff on the other side that I only go in there when I'm helping them. Number 5, discuss with the housemates and family. I love the word mates. We should use that here in the US. But discuss with them what you're doing and why. Be clear with them. Ask them to be on board. Tell them why it's important. Express that you need their help, that kind of thing. Number 6, plan your eating, particularly at first. Make that list of what you're going to eat so that you don't even have to question what you're going to eat. Number 7, start with 3 good meals a day based on protein, veggie salad, and good fats. So don't try to jump right into fasting. That might encourage more cravings if you're trying to get your diet really, really clean. So what we encourage is 3 meals, but try not to snack in between. Which is, number 8, try not to snack, because when you're snacking, you're keeping that craving stuff going. And then number 9, some people who cut back hard on carbs, who are doing the Band-Aid off kind of approach, they get a thing called a keto flu or a detox flu, some other people call it. There are ways to combat this. Number 1 is know that it's temporary. You will get through it. Don't add back carbs just to get through it. Hydrate, and hydrate some more. Supplement electrolytes from the very beginning. That's very helpful. And if it's disrupting your sleep, you're getting muscle cramps, something like a magnesium supplement can be helpful. Number 10, if you're on prescription medicine, particularly for diabetes, and I would add hypertension, your plan will need checking with the doctor or your nurse practitioner. She says nurse, but they mean nurse practitioner. So, check to see if medicines need to be adjusted, what things you should watch for. Make sure you have things to check your blood sugar, blood pressure, that we're going to be in line. So page 54, 55, it is their version of the traffic light like we give out here in our clinic. Now, ours looks a little bit different. It's a little bit more detailed. But basically, the green foods on page 54 are safe foods. You can eat them. You don't have to worry about them. If it's your mealtime, you eat those. Things on page 55 that are in the yellow, venture with caution. And then things means you can have them, just watch your portions. And if it triggers you, they're going to be more likely to be trigger foods. If it triggers you, avoid it. In the red page, or the abstain and refrain, we call it the red light here in the clinic, or the foods that you should really, really avoid. And remember, we also tell you too, you're not going to be perfect. And this is part of a journey. You're going to have times when you slip and fall and times that you're going along really well. So if you eat something off the red list, do not beat yourself up. You cannot change that decision. It's in the past. But if you eat something off the red list, think of it like a red light. I ran that red light. I wasn't supposed to run that red light. I could get in trouble if I ran that red light. But just because I ran it doesn't mean I'm going to run all the rest of the lights on the way home. So you get back on track with your green and your yellow, your very next meal. Don't let you keep getting off track. So page 56 is going through different people's little vignettes, opinions, things of that nature. I point out a couple little sentences, like out of George's, the very last line. I love it. It doesn't have to be sweet to be an addictive substance. Like I said, some people are more salty, savory. Anna, she mentioned, I applied my program, I stayed honest, and I learned from my relapses. That one lick, that smidgen, that crumb releases the obsession to use all over again. So she learned, don't tempt it. Don't lick it. Don't sniff it. Just keep it away, kind of thing. Dave, one of the things he does is he plays the tape through my head. What will happen if I try just one? So if I try just one, that's that slippery slope. Here I go. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm going to feel bloated and sluggish and horrible. And then I'm starting this journey all over again. So he plays that tape visually and putting in his mind what's going to happen if he goes off and has that first bite of things. Michael, visuals are a big part of the trigger process for me. So things like going to the grocery store, you may need to temporarily do the click list or the Walmart pickup. You may need to temporarily do Instacart or something like that, because just going, seeing, smelling, Pavlov's dog comes out and here you go. Top of page 57, there's an example of a typical meal that's there. It's basically protein, and keep it simple, meat and veg, and keep it simple. This is the part I want to point out, because a lot of people come at this because they start with wanting to lose weight. But in reality, when you're dealing with food addiction, you cannot think of it as a weight loss plan in the beginning. You might lose weight. You will lose weight, but you cannot think of it like a diet. The purpose is to get healthy, not to lose weight. So it points out the amounts are not the rules. This is not a diet. Now, you should be able to go from one meal to the next without snacking. If you're struggling in the beginning, absolutely, let's have some high protein snacks like some boiled eggs around or some sliced ham, something like that that you can quickly add that's just going to be protein based, and then drink plenty of fluids. But our goal is not to stick to a certain amount with each meal. You want to eat to satiety. You want to eat till satiated so that you're not reaching for those snacks, because your snacks are going to be more likely to take you off the rails. Then we get into some tidbits on how to stay on track. So take food to work, and when you travel, I do this. I bring my lunch a lot, and when I travel, I pack all of my safe foods. My husband usually dehydrates meat, and we make our own jerky to take with us when we travel. What'd you guys think about the bottom of page 57 when we were talking about going to other people's houses? They said when going to other people's houses, try to let them know that you don't eat carbs and sugar before you go. Have you ever attempted to do that? I know a lot of people are embarrassed to share and tell, but think of it, you can even explain it like an allergy. Like I can't do wheat, can't do gluten, can't do sugar. I'm kind of allergic to them in a way. If it's a party or a buffet, make sure that you take food that you can enjoy. So if it's an added dish, add your dish and make sure it's something you can eat. I guarantee everybody else is going to want to eat your stuff too. And also don't go fully hungry. Now, if it's a dinner party, you still want to be able to eat when you get there, but don't go famished. So don't eat your breakfast and then try to wait all the way till dinner before you eat again, because the more hungry you are, the more likely you are to make a bad decision for a food that you wouldn't have made if you were a little bit more full. So let's skip over page 58, coming in on the home stretch of this one. So Jen, and this is the author of the book, at the beginning, people will not always understand or want to understand. Have the conviction to stand your ground and leave if you have to. Have an exit strategy. Always have a backup plan. You have to be your own advocate. Nobody's going to advocate for you, and that's within your family, with your friends and whatnot. So have your exit strategy. Oh, I forgot I have to plan. I have to do something. Or I forgot I left my dog kenneled or something. Have your exit strategy. The reason why you have to, or a hard out time, or somebody that you can say text, and if I text you, it's 911. You got to call me. I got to leave, and let them do it. But yes, have your exit strategy. So Starla mentioned, hi Starla. Good to see you. I try to eat before I go or wait until I get home, tell him it hurts her body, or offer to bring something to go along with their meal. And that's exactly on track. That's exactly what I would do too. And if you're sharing, it's even better, because they're seeing that you're sharing your love with them and they're seeing how you eat. So let's look at Anna. Anna, let's skip the first part of hers. She had to go really strict on her plan, extremely strict, even stricter with me. And most people think that I'm like hardcore strict. So Anna has 5 autoimmune conditions, and her rheumatoid arthritis is in complete remission right now. So it's easy for her to eat that way. It's not a punishment. And I mean, I can totally get that, because I know if I go back to a certain way of eating, I'm going to have psoriasis all over my body again. And I'm not cool with that. And she would start hurting. So it makes it easier for her to eat that way. Each bite I eat, I enjoy. I know that I'm providing my body with deep nutrition. I don't worry about what others think or about what they eat. This is my food plan, and it works for me. I eat to satiety, and I do not weigh or measure. I do not think everyone has to eat my way. Each person must find a food plan that works for them. So everybody's plan is going to be a little bit different here and there. You have to find what works for you. Hers is very, very strict because she has the autoimmune condition, and it's worth her time to stay very strict. But note, that's her plan. And just because she goes that strict doesn't mean you have to go that strict. Georgia, on the next page, she mentioned something that we don't talk about a lot here in clinic, but there's some people that protein triggers them. She had tried portion control, she tried hydration diets, she tried low carb, she tried paleo, she tried a lot of things, and all those helped. But when she started eating higher healthy fats and moderating her protein down, that's when she found that was the magic part for her. But that's her plan. Doesn't have to be your plan, but you have to start somewhere, try it for a little bit, give your body some time, and if you need to make changes from there, you can. One thing that I loved about Bitten and Dave's comments, and I'm not going to read theirs, but both of theirs screamed at me, keep it simple. Keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate this. Don't find 15 different Pinterest recipes and try to cook a different thing every day. Keep it very, very simple. A meat and a veg and a repeat. A meat and a veg and a repeat. And trade up your different meats and your veggies. Important, if you're taking medicine, it is really important that you consult with your healthcare professional before starting a reduced sugar and carbohydrate diet. Now, many of them are not going to understand this diet. They're going to come and be like, well, you're starting a diet. There's no reason to watch your sugar or measure blood pressure or anything of that nature, but it is. So one way you could phrase it, if you have diabetes, you could go in and say, I'm going to start a diet that is hopefully going to lower my sugar drastically. I'm on these medicines. I'm going to be checking my sugar. When do I start to worry when my sugar gets to what level? Or how would I need to reduce my medicine if my sugar starts going low? Same thing with blood pressure. I'm on blood pressure medicine. I'm going to be starting a diet that's hopefully going to lower my blood pressure. I'm going to monitor my blood pressure. When should I call you if it's going low for a medicine adjustment? What number should I call you at? That way you know, and you can help kind of almost coach them into getting you off of medicines. So in the first couple of weeks following, you can experience headache, lightheadedness, shakiness, fatigue, poor sleep, gastric changes. That is more of the withdrawal from the carbs and the electrolytes. So make sure you're supplementing your electrolytes. But then also if you have blood pressure or sugar issues, make sure you're checking those and calling your doctor if they're going too low. Do not take to vigorous exercise during this time. Give your body time to adjust. Now is not the time to start, beach body or something like that. If you feel up to going for a peaceful walk, go for a peaceful walk. But for the most part, just let your body adjust in the first couple of weeks. Supplement with your electrolytes. Some people need magnesium. But remember, your body's making a big shift. It's shifting from burning sugar, and it's been burning sugar for a long time, to burning fat for fuel. And that's a big adjustment for the body. So it may take a week or two to improve. And even when you start back on your exercise, you may start back and not be as at a high level as you were when you stopped or when you started making the dietary changes. So be patient with your body as it's making these changes. All right. That was it for chapter 3. It was a lot. If you have follow-up questions or anything, please post them. I'll try to get to them throughout the week. Chapter 4 is mainly on recipes. And man, some of this stuff looks good, especially since it's the end of the day and I'm kind of hungry. I'm ready to go home and cook dinner. I'm going to challenge you to maybe go through and find a recipe that you want to try and give it a try this week. We're not going to do a session like we did tonight on the recipes because, well, that would just be us wanting to eat the whole time, which is not the purpose. But do try to find one and make it. There was one with, I think, maybe some Brussels sprouts or something. Yes, the stir-fried sprouts with pancetta that I might end up trying this week. So next week, we're actually going to be looking at chapter 5, healing your addicted brain. And so we've got 2 more weeks, I believe, left on this. And then I have a special week follow-up talking with Tia Reed. She's a food addiction specialist. After that, we did line it up and we're going to record a session. So if you have specific questions about food addiction, acknowledging it, recognizing it, transforming from it, what it's like, please post it to any of these and I will keep up with them so that I can talk about that with her because it will be a recorded session. She's not going to be able to be here with us live. So if you have food addiction questions, post them and we will talk with Tia about them. And otherwise, I will see you guys next week for chapter 5. Have a great one.